All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the September 9th, 2024 El Dorado Irrigation District Board meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Directors Osborne, Dwyer, Day, and Enzini present. Director Camp absent. General Manager Abercrombie, General Counsel Polson, and Board Clerk Sullivan present.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on the adoption of the agenda, not on individual items? We'll get to those, but on the actual adoption of the agenda.
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the adoption of today's agenda, moved by Director Anzini and seconded by Director Dwyer. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
All right, thank you. Jim, do we have any employee recognition this morning?
Yes, I have one. We recently received an email from one of our customers named James, and not for me, expressing appreciation for an outstanding assistance provided by Seth Borba, Chief Construction Maintenance Worker. James praised Seth's exemplary effort and dedication while performing some duties. That concludes the recognition.
All right, thank you. Always good to hear. All right, do we have any public comment on items not on today's agenda related to EID?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please see the instructions in today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear there is any members of the public wishing to speak.
All right, thank you. We'll move to communications. Jim?
None today.
All right, Lori?
Happy Admission Day for California.
I saw all those flags driving up. That was fun. Pat? No? George? All right, well, I actually have something, the preliminary acorn report that I know everybody's been waiting all year. I hate to say it, I know the science will bear it out, but it's not looking really good right now. A lot of hundreds, if not thousands of immature, not viable acorns dropping, and I don't see a lot left on the trees. So cross our fingers. It can turn itself around, so we have a little time, but right now, initially not looking really promising.
So is that a wet winter or a dry winter?
Dry winter, when we don't get the big, juicy, ripe acorns. So, and so far, the 2 big wet winters we've had, it's been accurate, so. All right, and hey, these oak trees have been around for tens of thousands of years, so they know a thing or two. All right, we'll move on. Jennifer, do you have anything?
None today, thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to approve today's consent calendar?
So moved.
You got a motion?
Second.
I can't call that. That was too close. Jennifer, you're going to have to make the call.
Director Anzini.
Okay. Ooh.
Need a change.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on items on the consent calendar?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of today's consent calendar, moved by Director Osborne and seconded by Director Anzini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
All right, we'll move to information item number 4.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Brian Deason, Environmental Resources Supervisor for the district, and I'm happy to be here today to provide you a summary of grant awards and our efforts to pursue additional grant funding. So the district actively pursues grants to help offset the costs of infrastructure projects, and other various projects, really to help reduce the pressure on customer rate revenue. So we cast a broad net, looking for funding for infrastructure improvements, wildfire fuels reduction, water conservation efforts, equipment purchases. In this presentation today, I'm going to talk to you about the district's efforts, describe some of our recent grant awards, some pending grant applications that are under review, and also talk briefly about future grant opportunities. So grants and grant management, grant writing is truly a team effort here at the district. Here are just some of the individuals, certainly not a complete list, but some of the individuals who are involved in writing, obtaining, managing grants for the district. But even beyond the individuals, grant management requires coordination among all the district departments. So engineering, operations, contracts, legal, all these departments are involved in obtaining and managing grants for the district. So yeah, you're in for a good time when you have a slide dedicated to acronyms. So these are just a few of the acronyms, or these are the acronyms that are in the presentation, so we can refer back to this if needed. Okay, sure. Really appreciate it. All right, so first to start with grant awards. So in the past 10 years, the district has received over $28 million in grant funding. These projects vary. I'll just describe briefly going down this list. Folsom Lake Raw Water Pump Station received a grant of over $7.5 million through a cooperative agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation. Through the Regional Water Authority and Department of Water Resources, we've received funding for water line replacements and also for the Outingdale Intake Pump Station. We received close to $1 million through reclamation for the Upper Main Ditch Piping Project. We received numerous grants through CAL FIRE's Wildfire Prevention Grant Program for hazardous fuels reduction projects around our critical infrastructure. And we've also received funds through FEMA's Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for emergency backup generators at both water and wastewater facilities. Next slide, please. Continuing on with grant awards, we've received a sizable grant for the Slide Park Intertie Improvement Project, another grant for for the SPI through the American Rescue Plan Act. That same program, we also received funding for the Outingdale Dam Emergency Replacement Project. You may recall during the last meeting, Emily Bertram was here, EID's Park and Recreation Manager, describing the recent grant award notification they got for the skid steer masticator. Also recently, 3 other recent grants, meter replacement through USBR Water Smart program, a grant from CAL FIRE for additional fuels reduction work along the El Dorado Canal, and a grant through the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program for Flume 45. And I'm going to be talking about these last three in a little more detail. So meter replacement. We received a grant for $100,000 from Reclamation to replace some wholesale meters for the city of Placerville. This grant is going to help offset costs for planned replacements that needed to be done. There's 3 total meters that are in the scope of this grant, and they're going to provide more accurate reading. I'll be able to track water loss, identify leaks earlier, and just better overall accounting of the water. And this is just a map to give you an idea of where these particular meters are located. So Placerville is roughly in the center of the map. The black line represents the city of Placerville's service area. The squares, the blue and red squares, represent the wholesale meters that the city of Placerville has. There's roughly a dozen or so of them. And the 2 red squares are where are the meters that will be replaced under this grant. I believe there's 2 at the Camino or Coloma site, and 1 on the eastern side that I can't quite read from here. Woodman Circle, thank you. Next slide, please. The El Dorado Canal fuel break. So we received a grant from CAL FIRE for over $787,000 to do hazardous fuels removal along approximately 3 miles of the El Dorado Canal. So this photo shows a segment of Flume 46. Flume 46 is approximately 3,300 feet long, wooden flume, an asset that's highly at risk to damage from wildfire. You can see some of the previous work that was done under the previous CAL FIRE grants here, and we're looking to expand on that. And we propose to do that through a combination of hand treatments, mechanical mastication where slope allows, chipping, and controlled burn piles. Next slide, please. This map just shows you, gives you an idea of the overall scope. It's approximately 3 miles long. The kind of yellow shaded and green shaded areas represent the treatment areas. That red line running through the middle is Highway 50, and that's approximately, it's near Ice House Road, this particular segment that we're seeking to do the treatments on. So the difference between the green and the red there is areas where we believe we can do mastication are green. The terrain there is quite steep. We're looking to clear up to 300 feet upslope and up to 300 feet downslope of the canal. That won't be possible in all areas, just simply due to the terrain. But that's what we're seeking to do. And sorry about that. One last, yeah. One interesting anecdote we received from the Caldor after the Caldor fire was that protecting this type of asset was very challenging for the firefighters, even from the air, because they weren't able to see the canal due to the dense canopy. And so what we're seeking to do is to thin that canopy so it's visible in the event of a wildfire. So beyond fuels management and reduction, really a long-term solution to really making the canal resilient to wildfire is to convert these wooden flumes to concrete structures. One such project that we're seeking to do that through is with Flume 45. You can see Flume 45 on the left, an example of a previous wood flume that was converted to a concrete conveyance on the right. So that's what we're seeking to go from wildfire susceptible wood flumes to wildfire resilient concrete structures.
Brian, if you can go back to that slide. These vegetation management projects not only protect our infrastructure, but it also helps for the communities that are adjacent to, thank you. And I think this one's particularly telling because you can see firefighter access along the walkway there on the wooden flume. It would be pretty difficult, not impossible, but difficult. And the picture on the right shows pretty good access for equipment and firefighters, and there's a water supply. And so I think it's not only for our customers and our own infrastructure, but a great asset for the community. Thank you.
Well said.
Sometimes firefighters need a bath. When they fall in, they'd be fine.
So we recently did receive funding from FEMA through the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant Program for the Flume 45 replacement project. I do have some statistics, but I need to reference my notes. So the BRIC program first originated from congressional funding in 2020. During that round of funding, we did submit several grant applications through Cal OES for flume replacement. Notably, we submitted a grant application for Flume 30. Subsequently, in 2021, Flume 30 was destroyed by the Caldor fire, which put us in a good position to submit an application in 2022 to be able to demonstrate the vulnerability of these assets. And so we submitted a application in 2022. We were recently awarded, just in July of this year, funding for Phase 1. It's a phased project in which Phase 1 we would complete environmental review and design, and Phase 2 would be construction. A few more comments. So in 2022, I just wanted to highlight, BRIC is a nationally competitive program. There was approximately $2.3 billion in funding. There were over 800 applications received, and 124 were awarded. So let's see. And I guess just to speak to timeline, so Phase 1, we are scheduled to be completed by July of 2025, so complete with environmental review and design. From there, we submit our deliverables to FEMA for their consideration. There's a little bit of uncertainty about how long it will take FEMA to review those, just because it's such a new program. They actually have not had a project go all the way through both phases yet, because it's a new program. But under your best case scenario, we think we could be constructing in 2026. Next slide. All right, moving on to pending applications. Currently have grant applications out seeking approximately over $31 million in funding. There's one grant that was applied for earlier this year for improvements to both boat launches at Sly Park. We still have a few pending flume replacement applications through the Cal OES and FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. These are they've been identified as waitlisted, so they're there, still under consideration in the event that funding becomes available. We also have Flume 45, Phase 2, which would be construction, the project I was just describing, which would be up to over $6.5 million to help fund construction of that project. And our most recent application to FEMA's BRIC program is for the Reservoir 1 and Pollock Pines Reservoir Replacement Project. So just want to describe a little bit about this project. So the photo in the upper left, that's from Paradise Irrigation District's floating cover. And this is damage that was caused due to the campfire. So it melted the cover and essentially took their whole system offline. If you look at the photo in the lower left-hand corner, that is our Reservoir 1 floating cover up in Pollock Pines. And what we're seeking to do through this program is to convert that to wildfire-resilient concrete tanks. So this grant, we're seeking the anticipated project cost for this, for Res 1 and both the Pollock Pines tank as well, is approximately $20 million, and we're seeking $14 million in funding through the BRIC program. I also wanted to describe public assistance. So grants, typically with a grant, we're seeking to obtain funding to go do a project. With public assistance, something has happened due to an emergency, and we're seeking reimbursement for those funds. So the district currently has a lot of projects in for consideration by FEMA associated with past emergencies, the 2017 storms, the Caldor fire, and 2023 storms. And so these public assistance grants will help offset the costs that we've already incurred and those that are not covered by insurance. Currently seeking reimbursement on over $17 million in damages, and to date, we've received approximately $2.3 million through public assistance. So we will continue to seek grant opportunities to help offset costs and reduce the burden on customer rates. We do have, as funded through last year's operating budget, a new in-house administrative analyst position that is focused on seeking grants. Mike Haggerty, he's here today. He's becoming a real popular guy. Next slide. And just some examples of some grant pursuits that we're currently seeking. California Department of Water Resources Dam Safety and Climate Resilience Program. This may be a good candidate program for the Silver Lake Dam Replacement Project. California's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. I think we're seeking whether or not it would be possible to get reimbursement for some of the lead line investigation work that has been done. CAL FIRE's wildfire prevention and forest improvement programs. We will continue to seek funding through those. Inflation Reduction Act. I believe this may provide some opportunity for fleet replacement. State and local cybersecurity grant from Cal OES. And we've had multiple successes through USBR's Water Smart program and BRIC and hazard mitigation grant programs, and we'll continue to seek funding through those sources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Lori?
Yes, thank you for this report, and I appreciate the fact that we're pursuing the grants that have been kind of sitting in a little cloud that we have not reached for, and I appreciate the report in showing that over a 10-year process. I am happy to see this happen in the last 4 years. Since I've been here, I really didn't have a grasp of where we were with grants other than engineering reports from this position to this position, and I appreciate the fact that we're going into one funnel. Thank you for joining our crew. The one question I do have is the Water Smart program. Now, I don't remember up on the slide where I know that Water Smart's been around for a while, but I really don't have a grasp on what we're doing with just the water, because I've gone to conferences that Water Smart people are there. And they keep showing me, well, this is the grants that you can go to, but my understanding is, where do we stand with that?
Sure. Currently, we have a grant that we just received for the meter replacement.
Okay,
So we're also seeking to expand that to, they have a large meter replacement project, small meter replacement project. We're investigating avenues for that. The Water Smart program was also the program that provided approximately $1 million for the upper main ditch piping project. And I believe there was a previous grant as well.
okay, thank you so much.
Have we given any thought to boat launch facilities at Silver Lake?
Yes, that is on our list.
On our list? I can't get my boat in the lake, that's kind of self-serving. You know?
I see, I see. Well, we'll include that in our justification.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
Yep, no, that is a facility that's on a list of projects where we track projects that we know we want to do, and we review funding opportunities as they come up and try to find a match.
Thank you.
Great. Pat? you have any? No. All right, is there any public comment on this? Yes. Oh, sorry.
I was
John?
waiting in the wings. John Money, engineering manager for the district. Brian Mueller is not available today, but he sent me a text last night. He wanted to specifically recognize the work that Brian Deason has delivered for the district over the last several years until we had the opportunity to bring Mike Haggerty on board. Especially with, some of the larger funding sources we have are the FEMA BRIC and hazard mitigation block grants. And Brian has done a fantastic job of navigating the requirements of those programs and developing relationships with their local administrator, which is Cal OES. And that's very apparent by the combined total, that's $7 million that we potentially will receive for our Film 45 replacement project. So we just wanted to make sure that we gave Brian his due recognition for his work on those projects.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Brian. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your first name? Mike. So Mike, we're going to have a 25% increase over, I'm just teasing you.
His name's not Brian.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on information item number 4?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on information item number 4.
All right, we'll move to action item number 5. We need to pay our bills. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move option 1, that we pay our bills.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on information item, or excuse me, on action item number 5?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 5, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Day, does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak on action item number 5. Option 1, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Ancini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. We'll move to action item number 6, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve option 1.
Actually,
We want,
staff would like to make this presentation for the
Okay.
board.
You can't break the record.
we have expensive people in the audience. Keep it moving.
Good morning, Honorable Board. I'm John Kessler. I'm representing the Water Division and Engineering Department this morning. This is an item to consider additional funding for our Sly Park outlet with regard to the controls and the low-level outlet. The photo you see is one of the many great works of Jeremiah Bond, one of our rangers at Sly Park, capturing, I believe this is from the Peninsula Campground, but you can see these photos on our website and various seasons of the year and various locations, and really brings out the beauty of our facilities and what we can enjoy sometimes not only our spare time, but when we're working. Next, please. Previous board actions, the board adopted the 24-28 CIP subject to available funding. This project was not included in that consideration because we didn't appreciate the magnitude of issues with the low-level outlet at that time. And by result of our observations, our maintenance challenges after adopting the CIP and the results of a condition assessment, it brought to light that we need to make this a more immediate project, that we couldn't wait for the upcoming CIP cycle. Summary of the issue is that the control equipment regulating the outlet releases from Sly Park Reservoir into the Camino conduit for delivery to Reservoir A water treatment plant is largely the original 1953 era system. Yeah. That's about my birth date. Recently, failures have highlighted this equipment as beyond its design life and no longer reliable. An engineering condition assessment of the electrical and mechanical control components confirmed significant issues reported by operations. Spare parts to maintain many components are no longer available. Staff is currently updating the electrical system to conform to current electrical codes, eliminate safety concerns, and improve their reliability. Additionally, we're pursuing a design and eventual replacement of the hydraulic components to reduce the risk of valve failure within this critical facility. And a failure could result in large-scale water service interruptions across the district. And as you know, at times, Sly Park is really our most versatile facility, but it delivers water from Pollock Pines to the west to El Dorado Hills, so really our core service area. This is an overview of the Sly Park Dam. To the left is the dike and the spillway. To the right is the main dam. And if you can imagine, perpendicular to the crest of the dam is the low-level outlet pipe. It begins in the reservoir, of course, inside that log boom circle. And it extends about 400 feet from the reservoir just about to where the crest of the dam is, where we have a main isolation valve, and we'll show you a photo of that shortly. And then it extends another 400 feet to the regulating valves and another isolation valve, just where about the Sly Park Creek. You're gonna let me navigate? You trust me?
Just for this picture.
Oh, okay. So I'm talking about the main intake here, running under the dam through it. It's encased in concrete until it gets to gate valve number 1, which is an isolation valve. And then it runs another 400 feet until you get to the toe of the dam here. What happened to my mouse? There we go. In this vicinity. And it bifurcates into 2 regulating valves, but we added around 2000 another kind of isolation valve immediately upstream of those original 2 regulating valves. From there, it flows through the Camino conduit downstream to Res A. Thank you, Jen. This is that isolation gate that's most upstream in the outlet pipe. So you have to walk through a tunnel and alongside of the conduit in order to get access to this. And we go up there several times a year, but once a year it gets tested a full cycle just to make sure it's in readily available operation. You can see some of the hydraulic oil that that's leaked over time in this vicinity, and that's one of the issues we're trying to deal with. The upper cylinder you see kind of parallel or adjacent to the man standing there is the hydraulic cylinder. That's it. Good, Jim. That whole long section is, that sits above the gate. So we'll be talking about that. Next, please. And this is the conduit looking downstream as it runs through the tunnel. It's a 36-inch conduit before it expands to 42 into the Camino conduit. This is looking upstream, and this is the gate valve that we installed around 2000 that serves to kind of a backup. We set this just a little more open than the flow we're regulating through the two main regulating valves downstream, and it also serves as an isolation point if we only want to dewater for maintenance from this point down.
John, are you going to offer the board a tour of the conduit? It's
If
a
they
little
would like.
claustrophobic.
They would like. You might have to, if you're like me, you might have to walk sideways in some places. And duck. So inside the main control building is this view, and so this is the downstream extent before the conduit goes underground to Res A, and we're looking at slide gate number 3. Slide gate 2 would be to our left, just out of the picture, but we're seeing the hydraulic controls. The blue features on the floor are the main oil pressure systems, and as you can see, there's evidence of that leakage over time. We've got the control valves up on the wall, those black items to the left of where you're at, right? Just a little more black and silver. There you go. Good job. And then you see the hydraulic piping that runs to both the open and close ends of the operating cylinders. So as we mentioned, the existing components for the hydraulic system, they range in age from 30 to 70 years old. Spare parts aren't available for many of the components, particularly the hydraulic pressure units and the control valves, so it means we're looking at replacement of some sort. The accumulators, which are the long cylinders on the back corner, Jen, can you take a guess at those? There you go, good. So those serve to limit the operation of the pumps and build up pressure in reserve, and so when the cylinder calls for an opening or close, it'll first draw from that pressure unit. Those are have failed, they've been repaired, but they're very undersized, so it causes the pumps to run more and cause more wear and tear. And there's numerous leaks on the existing hydraulic piping in the operating cylinders, as will be seen in the next slide. On the left, you can see the hydraulic pressure unit on the floor. You see the extent of oil leakage we've had to deal with because of seeps and leaks and failures. On the right, immediately lower right, you see the control valves. Those are no longer available. To the far right, you see the gate stem between the gate below and the hydraulic operator above. And you can see the evidence of oil that's leaking through that packing of the hydraulic operator. And then very middle top, you see just some dripping going on in the hydraulic piping. But in that photo on the left, you can appreciate the amount of hydraulic piping that's involved with this current system. And one of the options is to consider replacing this equipment in kind or going with another type of system where you have an integrated unit that sits on the valve operator itself and doesn't have all that piping. And so we looked at both options. So option one was to replace in kind, maintain and upgrade all that piping that goes to the valve cylinders, and which includes a 400-foot run from those pressure units upstream to gate number 1 through the tunnel. Alternative 2 is replaced with a new HAS systems, and I'm sorry, I don't know what that acronym stands for, but the hydraulic pressure systems integrated directly on the new operating cylinders. This is a horizontal view on the bottom of that unit, but the hydraulic ram is the larger piece on the bottom, and the pressure unit is what sits on top of it. That's it. No hydraulic piping to have to plumb through the control room or through or back up to gate 1. It eliminates all that hydraulic tubing, the accumulators, the three-way valves, and floor-mounted equipment. It gives us more precise gate control. The O&M is simplified, and it's a lower cost. And the option we're looking at is having both gates 2 and 3, the regulating gates in that control room, and gate 1 upstream, all to be sized with the same RAM, the same operating system, and to have a spare on hand, so that although they can be rebuilt, we would have one on hand if we ever need that in short order. Next, please. We're also in the process of upgrading the electrical system, and that includes replacing the main disconnect with a fast-acting breaker to reduce arc flash issues, provide a new 200-amp distribution panel suitable for 240-volt three-phase for hydraulic controls, and 120-volt single-phase for lighting the PLC, and combining all the circuit feeds into one panel, which we don't have currently. That makes it difficult to trace the circuits. We're looking at improving the grounding, labeling all the wires at the breakers and their terminal ends, improvements that are being performed currently by district staff, and we're currently in the process of procuring this replacement equipment, and installation will follow as soon as we can thereafter. And ultimately, the facility will be brought into compliance with the current electrical codes. This is necessary not only for safety and to meet current codes, but also to be able to have well-defined and the proper electrical terminations or power supply for the new equipment. So this is going to get us cleaned up, get us modernized, and also serve the future overall. Next, please. So our next steps are to retain an on-call consultant who would document the electrical improvements and as-built drawings, prepare design drawings and specs for the hydraulic system improvements with integration of the electrical drawings, and assist us with the preparation and evaluation of construction bid documents for the hydraulic system improvements. And once we have that, we would propose to bring bids back to the board to consider a construction contract. Next. So the funding we're requesting is the consultant contract of $52,000 plus, capitalized labor $27,000, and contingency of $10,000, for a total funding request of $89,991. And the schedule is to conduct these design of the hydraulic system this fall and early winter next year. Request board approval of the construction contract no later than summer, hopefully sooner, and perform those hydraulic system improvements during fall next year, going into winter if necessary. Part of that will be dependent on capturing a good time when it makes sense in terms of our operation. And we certainly don't want to take a chance on having an outage and an issue when we're fully dependent on Slight Park. So.
Do you have a ballpark estimate of what the construction might be?
I think we're looking at something on the order from a preliminary estimate on about $500,000.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm hoping it can be less than that, but that's the first shot.
I think I have this brainwave going on with Director Dwyer because those are the same questions, but I have another question. Earlier you said this was not included in the CIP. So this is for design only on the second part, which is going to be $500,000, which you just said. Is that going to be included and updated with our CIP? How is that going to work?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
It's in our working version right now.
It's in the working version, not the one we approved last October.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question on that RAM, the RAM technology. How new is that? How long has it been around? What's its track record?
My understanding, it's been around for a couple of decades. It's used in avionics, and so it's considered very reliable. So board options, option 1, authorize additional funding in the amounts of $52,991 for design of hydraulic control equipment and as-built documentation of electrical upgrades, $27,000 for capitalized labor for electrical equipment installation and project management, and $10,000 in contingency for a total funding request of $89,991 for the Sly Park Outlet Control Improvements, project number 23051.
I'll move option
We
one.
already have Director Day moved option 1, so we would just
Sure.
need the second.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll second.
Second.
All right. Any further board comment? Any public comment or question?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak on action item number 6, option 1, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Dwyer. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Please vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll be moving to closed session now. Just a quick note, we will call for public comments on item B before we go into closed session. Counselor, do we have a time estimate?
I anticipate, thank you, President Day. Yeah, as you indicated, the board will be meeting in closed session to discuss the 2 items that are agendized today as closed sessions A and B. And I anticipate the board's consideration of these items will require at least 30 minutes.
Okay. And George? Yeah.
I should have mentioned this earlier in board comment, but I went up to our campground in Sly Park on Labor Day weekend at about 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. Every campground was occupied, and the day use was completely occupied by 11 o'clock in the morning. And so I talked to Sonny, who's been a camp host at Chimney for years, and his last year, and he's going to be this year, but he said even all the way back at Chimney, every campground was full.
That's good to hear. Is there any public comment before we go into closed session on closed session B?
If members of the public would like to address the board on closed session item number B, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on closed session item number B.
All right, thank you.
Before we recess to closed session, please note the time that will be.
Yes, we'll be returning no sooner than 10:20 a.m., but it could be after that.
And President Day, before the board recesses into closed session, I just want to point out that staff has proposed an additional negotiator be designated by the
Oh, yes,
board
thank
for
you.
closed session item A. He is listed on today's agenda as Jack Hughes with the law firm Liebert Cassidy something, something, something. And I would request that the board consider designating Jack as a labor negotiator for the district.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, I recommend that the board move and take action on that.
Do I have a motion to add Jack from something, something, something to our, sorry, Jack.
I will move that we add Jack Hughes to our agenda in the closed
To
session.
our negotiating team.
Yes.
I'll second.
All right, is there any public comment on that?
For the record, Mr. Hughes, can you please say what your firm's name is?
Thank you.
For the record, Jack Hughes is from the firm Liebert Cassidy Whitmore. We have a motion by Director Anzini and seconded by Director Dwyer to add Mr. Hughes as an additional designated representative on the negotiating team.
All right, we're back from closed session. at 11:07. Counselor, do we have anything to report?
Yes, thank you, President Day. The board met in closed session on items A and B, and in both circumstances, it provided direction to those present but took no reportable action. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any review of assignments?
None today.
I would encourage the board to look at the future agenda items for the September 23rd meeting. It's going to be a busy one. A lot of important topics on there, including the FCC charges adoption and the CIP workshop, along with the resolution to authorize the 2024 aid refunding revenue bonds.
All right, thank you, Jim. Meeting adjourned.
At 11.
11:08. Thank you.